y'all, I'm Rachel, owner and artist here at Stella Rose Boutique, your everyday person's upcycling store here in Greenville, Tennessee. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and mash that notifications bell, and make sure you hit all so you won't miss any of my upcoming trash to treasures, thrift flips, how-to tutorials, and just everyday upcycling old furniture and making it new home decor again. If you remember a few videos back, I was telling you about a home that was being torn down. 6 generations were in it, and the grandmother, which was either the 2nd or the 3rd generation, was having a hard time because that was one of her homes that she grew up in. Anyhow, we were able to get some of the things out of the home, and one of the things were the cabinet doors off the top, the uppers. And I'm going to repurpose them and give them back something so that they have something from that home with them at all times. Anyhow, and then whatever else I decide to make in the garage, whenever I'm doing it. I just don't know what I'm going to feel like doing, so come with me as we go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do to repurpose these doors for this family. Let's go! I started with my 5-in-1 tool here, and I popped off all the little hooks that they had on there. Maybe they had a towel or something hanging from it. And then I removed all of the hardware. I save all of my hardware and screws and stuff like that with them for other projects that I can use them for. And I took the 5-in-1 tool and I popped off all the little trim, so I had a flat piece of wood on the front and the back. I didn't record this part, but I had took sawdust and some wood glue and I mixed it together, and I filled the holes where the screws were coming through for the knobs on the handles or on the cabinets. And then I took my DIY Dark and Decrepit and I stained and sealed all in one step each one of the boards. I used one of my son's tools. I don't know what this is called. He uses it to make fishing lures. And I measured out on the bottom of all 4 of the pieces of the cabinetry. I decided I was going to make risers, so I wanted to make sure that the feet were all in the same place. The feet are spindles used from a leftover chair that I had cut up earlier this past fall. And once I put some wood glue on it, I then turned it over and nailed it in so it was secure with my air nail gun. If you don't have these tools, you can just use a regular nail and a hammer. I did let them sit with some weight on them to make sure they had a good connection and stuck well. I then decided I was going to paint them with Flour Sack from Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. When it dried though, there was quite a bit of bleed through, so I decided I was going to seal it up really well with a sprayed can of polyurethane. And then I went back and I painted them with the DIY clay-based paint. You see me here using some Iron Orchid Designs air dry clay. I was using that to fill in some of the cracks and the crevices from the gun that had put the nails in. Here I'm using Apothecary from DIY on one of the risers. They all do have different colors. They all coordinate together. This is in faded burlap. And I have another one that is done in Gravel Road and another one that was done in Crinoline. You see me here using my handy dandy heat gun. I do use that often to speed the drying up on my projects when I'm making them. And you see me here starting to seal them up with my Big Top by DIY. All of them got a coat of the Big Top before I went in and I started stenciling them. After I sealed all 4 of the risers up with DIY's Big Top, I went in and stenciled all of them with the JRV Grain Sack Stripes stencil. And you see here that I had a brush that was too wet, and this is the result of it. So I wiped it off. It did stain it, so I went back with a larger center stripe for the Grain Sack stripe, and then I did the smaller ones on the side of it so you wouldn't see the mess up that I made there. I then went over each one and I stenciled the Grain Sack minis also by JRV, over the top of the grain sack stripes. I did this on all 4 of the risers. There are 2 main keys to having a successful clean line stencil coming out at the end, and one of them is to have a very high quality stencil brush. I use the JRV stencil brushes, and they are available on my website. I will leave a link to it down below in the description box. But the other key is to making sure it is really dry, that there's very little paint on them. After I was done, I sealed them all up with Big Top, and then when that was dried, I went in with clear wax because I knew I wanted to use a colored wax, and that is my little security blanket by making sure I use the clear wax before I use the colored wax so I have more control over it. I decided I'm going to finish up these candlesticks that I had started. They are from a bedpost. They were painted right there in Apothecary, and I had just left them be for a while. I had not got to finishing them. I drew a circle out on a piece of scrap wood here, and you see me cutting it out on the bandsaw, which you can use a regular jigsaw to cut them out. And then I sanded them smooth on the belt sander. You can use just regular sandpaper. I just have a 120 on the belt sander, and you can just use a regular 120 grit to sand it by hand if you choose to. I then took my wood glue and I applied it to the already painted part from the bed post, and once I put that on, I secured it with the air nail gun by putting a few nails on each side that I applied the wood to. You see me here making a wood putty. I'm using the wood glue and some of the sawdust from sanding them so that it'll blend in better. I wasn't sure if I was going to stain it or paint the tops at that time, and I filled in the little crevices left from putting the nails into the top. And once they dried, I sanded them smooth, and I decided to go in with weathered wood. I had that out for another project and I had some left over, so I decided to paint the new wood that I had put on there in weathered wood. Then I sealed the entire thing up with DIY's Big Top so I would have a barrier to go back to, and then I painted the outside all the way around in Crinoline. Once I painted that down with Crinoline, I then went and I wet distressed it all around the edges of the candlesticks from the top to the bottom. And then I went in and sealed the final piece with DIY's Big Top. I then decided for my third project, I was going to make one of Brianna's decor boards and see how well I could do one. So I drew out the one side after I clamped my wood down to the table, and I got out my jigsaw and I cut the one side. And then when I was done cutting it, I flipped it over and I drew that outline on the other side so that it would be as close to possible as matching as the other side was already at. And then I used my jigsaw and I cut that side out as well. And then once that was done, I flipped it over and I cut the bottom edges out and rounded them down too. After I cut the bottoms of it and I rounded those out, the board didn't look rustic enough to me and weathered enough, so I took the jigsaw and I cut little spots into the side and kind of roughed up the side so it looked more rustic on that end. Then I took one of my son's wood chisels and I made some marks and some hammers and chunks taken out of the board on both sides. After I was done making some dents and scratches and scrapes up in the board, I used my sandpaper on a 220 grit and I sanded it down really lightly just so that there were no splinters or wood pieces coming up where they could hurt somebody. I used my DIYs, Dark and Decrepit, to even the board's tone out, and then I used my white Decrepit Dust and my brown Decrepit Dust to give it a more aged look. All of the paint and products used in today's video can be found at stellaroseboutique.co and in my shop at Stella Rose Mercantile and Boutique at 524 Justice Drive in Greenville, Tennessee. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up and help me grow my channel by sharing it out with your friends and family. How did you like the risers that turned out from repurposing the cabinet doors and the bed posts that I used to finish up these candlesticks here? And how do you guys like the decor board that I got the idea from Brianna and I wanted to try to see if I could make one too? I think it all turned out pretty good. Tell me in the comments what you guys' thoughts are on everything. I'd love to hear it. And just a reminder, if you haven't hit that subscribe button for me and mash that notifications bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And keep an ear out because in the next video, you're going to hear about a giveaway that I'm having real soon. Thank you for watching. Bye!